The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, it's episode number 55, and it is 152 days till the man burns as of this recording. Listen, it is a clusterfuck of a month for me. I don't know about you. You might be sitting at home kicking your heels up or riding your bike or something, or whatever it is, people do when they listen to podcasts. But for me, it's just like a clusterfuck. I'm in the middle of moving to a new place, and my last day at my current apartment is exactly the day after I get back from Desert Hearts Festival, which is happening this weekend. And if you're listening to this show, chances are that you are well aware of how royally uncomfortable it's going to be to adult after coming back from a goddamn 4-day techno fest on 4 nights of imitation sleep in a tent. I'm going to eat healthy as fuck, though. I'm kind of psyched about that. I'm that experiment. I want to know what that's like. I quit sugar a couple of weeks ago, and coming back from a festy, I have, historically at least, really looked forward to a buffalo chicken quesadilla from Vallarta Express for my dopamine fix. Which, if you're a regular listener, you might be aware that I am aggressively addicted to buffalo chicken quesadillas from Vallarta Express. Their service just absolutely sucks ass. I mean, they treat you like dirt, but my addiction has just always won out. But no more. No more, because there is sugar in the ranch and the buffalo sauce, and probably the tortilla as well, because there's sugar in goddamn everything. So the day after Desert Hearts is going to be interesting. What else is happening? What else? Oh, well, while I'm attempting to make awkward small talk about fractals or whatever shit it is I talk about with squads of perfectly made up sparkle ponies at Desert Hearts, online editor Ramiro and executive producer Meg are going to be at the Burning Man Global Leadership Conference this weekend. It's going to be Meg's 4th time and Ramiro's 1st. Want to know all about the GLC and what the fuck it is? Go back and check out episode number 32 of this very show, where I interview Burning Man's regional coordinator, Iris, over at the at Burning Man headquarters in San Fran. That's what we call San Francisco. Those of us in the know, if you know what I mean. Which, if you do, that'll be a first. Anyway, speaking of executive producer Meg, she's one of 3 guests on today's show. Today's show is about epically failing at taking a project to the burn. A show about epic failure, of course, being the perfect opportunity to have Meg back on. She is, after all, partly to blame for this entire train wreck of a podcast we've been doing for 2-ish years. We kid Meg, of course. It wasn't an epic failure. I mean, it was failure for sure. It just wasn't really that epic. In just a minute, you're going to be hearing the voices of Stephanie, Meg, and Curt. Curt, you might remember from episode 17 of this show. These 3 musketeers were working on a project. It was called The Effect, which I will leave up to them to describe. Spoiler alert, the project is not approved for the honorarium grant. Honorarium rule. It was not approved for the grant despite all their best efforts. It is a show about a failure to launch, if you will. This subject will be of interest to you if you are considering jumping into the fire and building some shit for the burn. These 3 are a wealth of community knowledge, which they will dispense throughout today's episode. You will hear some great information about the process of trying to get funded, timetables, things to keep in mind, BM org bureaucracy and how to navigate that, things you should prepare for if you are thinking of taking an avalanche of headaches on in order to create some shit that you're just going to go set on fire anyway. Crazy fuckers. Lots of great stuff. Lots of great information on today's episode, and it's very entertaining too. I had just a real blast recording the show. Stephanie, of course, has just lots of beautiful, deep thoughts. There's a lot of conversations about brainstorming art. It's a really great back and forth between the three of them, really getting an idea of the chemistry and getting a taste of all that you'll have to consider if you're thinking about taking this on. I will tell you this, there is a bittersweet ending to the story. I mean, it's mostly a shit show, but there is a bittersweet ending at the very end. I'm fucking with them so much. This is great. So without further ado, God, fuck. I've said that way too many times on this episode, on this show, I think. I should start saying something else. Today's episode is entitled, We Failed at Arting. Not farting, though. They're fucking great at that. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with the buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for the you get no name.
Eat a dick!
Because we're having a hug meeting.
No, I'm not in Utopia this year. I was just telling Curt all the things I'm still doing, even though I don't work for Utopia this year.
Pulling me back in.
Oh, she doesn't want out.
I just want to jack everybody's Kubotas and enjoy right around the mountain. I give no fucks anymore.
Perfectly understandable. I mean, because that was like the first thought that I had is that, like, how did you guys, make any progress on a project together when every time you get together to talk about the project, it turns into some sort of a hub meeting about Utopia?
We were really good about that, actually. We didn't do that. We really didn't.
We can't separate
Can you?
these things. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea behind the project was that it was going to take a lot of time. And so these hub lead positions were like, well, shit. Do we actually have time to volunteer for Utopia?
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about throwing their project away.
Utopia was second on the list of hierarchy of importance?
In my opinion, it was. As a matter of fact, before I even interviewed for the hub position, I told them that
You're working on the effect.
I got a project.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a lot of time, so I don't know that I'll have it. And the answer was so John Ray. He's like, yeah, I understand that could be a problem. Why don't we have a conversation about it anyway?
Which,
He's very skilled at recruiting high-level volunteers.
And he really knows what he wants, and he says that he's like, this is what I'm going to have, and it's great. And it works out for the best most of the time. And it was nice because I'm not doing Utopia this year for the first time in ever. Yeah. And so was really able to be like, no, I'll handle paperwork, I'll handle scheduling, I'll be the liaison with CoLab, I'll get all the crap that, I took on all the...
Wait, you said you're not going to be involved with Utopia, but then you just listed off a bunch of responsibilities with Utopia?
No, not for me, though. I don't have those.
That was all responsibilities for the effect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was just like, I'll handle all that crap, and, I'll do everything except pick up tools, because nobody wants to see Meg do that. Except Curt, so that he can mock me. Because I'll be doing it wrong. So like that part of it, at least, we felt like, we knew how build was going to go, how fundraising was going to go, how all that stuff was going to go. And if the two of them had to go, and Ramiro too, had to go off and do Utopia crap, then I was just going to yell at them and curse at them and say nasty things in Facebook Messenger. Which happened anyway.
Which happened, I was about to say, that was very different, I'm sure.
And in truth, while I do think we were and we are good at separating things and being able to focus on the project at hand, the fact that we've worked together in leadership and other projects is incredibly valuable. It's I've worked on enough projects now to know that there are people I really want to work on projects with and people I really don't want to work on projects with.
True facts.
And that's a huge challenge for as much as I want to build the art, the reason I want to build the kind of art that we build for Burning Man is that I want to build community. I want to be engaged in that action. And when I met Curt on Playa in 2013, we met the year before, but when we started hanging out in 2013, he and Meg had just co-led the core project. And, who doesn't fall in love with a guy who is, enthralled with and inspired by building community through building art? I mean, it's like, what? Wait, that's a thing? And to talk, hours and hours and hours on Playa and ever since, about the special magic that you can create in that particular endeavor. There's something about being in the collective creativity, that opens the opportunity for quickly establishing relationships with people. Real relationships built on what's inside.
Yeah.
And it's thrilling. But the other stuff that we do together is incredibly valuable for informing not only who do you want to do it with, but knowing who you can count on for what sorts of skills and that kind of thing.
Well, that's like actually a perfect segue to go to the beginning of the story.
The beginning of the story.
Yeah. Well, no,
Start at the very beginning. No, don't.
That's how it works.
Hold on. Before
Yes,
you get to the
please.
beginning of the story, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So,
Are you going to ask me about dating burners?
in this room,
No, because that's a horrible idea. We should stop doing that.
in this room, you've got three people who put a lot of time, effort, blood into the community, as it were. But what inspires you to want to talk to us is a failure
Yeah.
that we had.
No, okay. No, okay.
Not at all my idea.
Wait, this is, okay, backtrack. Now, Meg is putting on the producer Meg hat for just a fucking minute. Arash and I have been talking about this for 2 years, about wanting to talk to people who built something or tried to build something that just failed spectacularly.
Yeah.
And this is the closest we've gotten to finding one. And we,
should have interviewed the people who built the man last year.
Okay.
I don't feel like this was a spectacular enough failure, but then Meg hit me up about, why don't we do the failed project episode with this
because we have
crew?
one now.
And my thought was just more like, this would be great. I can mostly sit back and let you guys talk. And it's going to be an entertaining episode. And
I'm going to phone it in.
Yeah.
But
That feeling exists.
I mean, my shoes are off. I already smoked some weed.
It's just funny to me that like literally we've been talking about this for since the very beginning of the podcast. Really, like looking for a project that didn't do it, a project that didn't get to
How
play.
on earth does that sound?
It's a hill
Ghetto bird.
Oh, is it a helicopter?
Welcome to the city,
Fucking ghetto bird.
I live in Mission Hills. We don't get those.
You're moving them.
You're moving, right? Yeah.
Hello, El Cajon Boulevard.
Oh yeah. Hi, welcome to it.
No, it was. We have a list, a Google Doc that everybody has access to and writes in ideas for shows. And one of them for the past 2 years has been failed project. This wasn't the first one that thought it in my head, but I'm like, this would be fun.
It's the first one we've had full-on access to the people who were involved in it,
That's true.
and that still had a good story. You know, because a failed project could just be like, we imploded and we didn't raise enough money and never mind.
Yeah.
But this is still a good story, and I only knew that because I was so intimately involved with it. But
Well, because let's segue to the beginning of it, because we were talking about you guys meeting or starting to hang out 2013 on Playa. And the last episode, when I interviewed Curt, that ended with sort of the ending of that year. So that would be the episode that the listeners should listen to before they listen to this one. Because now we want to get into the connections of how you three ended up together. Okay? So you're just going to stare at me like it's like a glare.
That's just like Kurt's normal look.
Glare.
Bring your video camera next time.
Scare everyone.
We'll start a video show. So talk about what she was just describing, about the idea of building community through art and why that's important.
We ended at the end of 2013 in our last podcast, as it were, right? And there are some people that believe that failure was pretty epic because of kind of the implosion that we had that I may or may not be responsible for.
There was a lot of internal psychological failure, but the project was a success.
Project was fucking astounding, and fuck you.
The emotional moot map, as we call it, was rather red.
It was pretty spectacular.
The emotional moot map, that's great. Okay.
So, Meg and I decided that it was time for us to take a break from each other.
Fuck yeah.
Stephanie had done an amazing job in 2012 of feeding the core project via Pink Heart while we were on Playa. They did it again in 2013, and then we started dating on Playa and off Playa, and now where we're at. She talks about people you want to build with, people you don't want to build with, and then there's the people you live with, and you're fucked. Right?
And if you're crazy enough to want to build with the person you live with, it's a special kind of insanity.
Because that's way more intense just working together in an office. You're like physically picking things up, and you're tired, or you're dusty, and
you disagree, and you're not on the same page, and I don't even live with these two, although it seemed like I did a little while, like during the beginning part, I was here all the goddamn time, or on the phone, or whatever.
Yeah.
But we never stopped. I mean, Meg and I never stopped with that, and Stephanie was happy to jump on in. There were a couple of projects that Meg was working on that I really didn't want to be a part of, but I also needed to take 2014 off. So I focused on individual art, and that's where Touchy started coming into play. And Stephanie worked on Touchy with me, and that started to be a lot of fun.
Touchy, for the listeners who are not familiar, was a project at Utopia.
2 years running.
2 years.
2 years, yeah. It's a series that we're doing, and we're going to continue to do it.
And the full name is?
Well, it changes. So the first year was Uncle Touchy, the next year was Dr. Touchy, and we'll get...
He got a PhD in the second year.
Yeah, and he's taking the year off because he has to get out.
I'm waiting for Congressman Touchy. That's my...
And it was designed around being very...
provocative.
Uncomfortable. Sure, provocative's good.
Well, that's interesting. While it is in fact provocative, I would not say it was designed around being provocative at all.
Describe the project.
So the first project was Uncle Touchy's photo booth. And it was a photo booth in which it was kind of designed to give you the feeling of, the like horrible, scary clown that lives in the woods, like the den that he would prepare. And I do say he with intention. And dressed up mostly like a 8-year-old girl's room.
What was the clown's intention?
Well, he's Uncle Touchy. We all have one.
Okay.
And I think when I say provocative, that I don't think it was designed to be provocative. I think it was, for me anyway, it was designed to be incredibly honest. Mm-hmm. And to engage in a very forthright conversation about something that is incredibly uncomfortable for lots of people to talk about. Our least favorite uncle.
Yeah.
Or our dad, or our brother, or the coach, or all the other folks.
Mine was a neighbor. But
Right. You know, mine was a father.
I remember being squicked out like no other with that Girl Scout sash.
Ha!
That was everything in there was squicky. Everything else in there was, like, uncomfortable. But I was a Girl Scout for 13 years. And so, like, the sash in there, that was like, I was like, nope, can't do it.
When you look at this particular topic, we're dealing with a power dynamic and where we feel safe. And that's typically where we get betrayed, is in that feeling of safety. So the Touchy series is going after the power dynamic. But it's all designed around wanting to have a conversation. I know that you're uncomfortable with this. Hell, I'm uncomfortable with this. But can we talk about it?
Yeah.
We know that it happens around the world. We know that it happens in our society. We know it happens in our backyard, right? So the one thing that we don't like to do is talk about it. We kind of go, oh, that's really bad. Sweep, sweep, sweep. Yeah. And so that's basically what the Touchy series is designed around, is having an honest dialogue about the power dynamic and where we got betrayed and what that's done to us.
And another piece of it for me, I mean, particularly starting with Uncle Touchy's photo booth, using humor, actually going to the place of macabre humor, I'll give you, but humor nonetheless, for me was a really, while difficult decision to make, one I wrestled with a lot, because while I do not want to, in my art, create pain for other people. I want to peel back the silence that surrounds a lot of the pain that we have. I want to create an opportunity for healing, or at least open honesty, but I don't want to create pain. I don't want to be intentionally hurtful. But I know, and it was my experience in talking with some of the people who engaged with the piece, and a number of whom had some real difficulty with it. A couple of people were really profoundly offended, and felt like the humor factor was belittling of the experience. And this is, the power of conversation and the power of collaborative art, for me, and interactive art. The conversation that I ended up having with this one person in particular, she was so upset and left a note at the piece and was, really peeved, and then found out that she knew Curt had worked on it. She didn't know it was my piece as well. Right. And then she said, well, I know Stephanie, and I actually I think I need to talk to her, because she's a deep cat, and I think there's got to be more to it.
Because with what little, I don't know for sure how much people would know Curt, but I imagine a lot of people would look at it and say, "Oh, Curt's kind of a prankster and kind of an asshole."
He's a dick.
So they think so. The whole concept of the art seems to change depending on who you are projecting the artist to be.
Well, and that's the projection in that is so amazing, right? Because if you know that part of Curt. You may think, God, what a dick bringing that kind of a fuck you on such a sensitive subject. Whereas when I spoke with my sister about the piece, and, she knows it's an incredibly sensitive topic for me, she was moved to tears and said, what an amazing thing that you have a partner who wants to work with you and engage with you in creating art and in around this. In pushing that, what an enormous gift. And that was my experience. My experience wasn't, Curt's playing with humor around something that's, an open gaping wound in my life. Well, it's not anymore, but that was at one time. But rather, I have a partner who wants to push not just me, not just himself, but our community and society in general to a different place of what would happen if we actually talked about it, if it wasn't a secret, if we didn't double shame people by keeping the lid on and all of that. So,
well, what would you say what is sort of the differentiating factor between if it is done in a mocking way versus it's done in a way to create conversation, to cultivate conversation? I mean, how would you know that without knowing the intentions of the artist?
You can't, right? You can't. And so I thought a lot about that. I'm like, ooh, there's going to be some people who are super triggered and hurt by this piece. Am I willing to do it anyway? Because I do care. I wouldn't do that casually. But I believed that at the kind of event that Utopia is, there is an audience for art and an audience for community and conversation that is going to want to be willing to anyway to engage. And so to a certain degree I had to decide, am I doing this just to hurt people? No. Do I believe that the benefit that could come from even in one conversation would be worth the potential upset to some people? It was a hard question, and it was one that, for me, and it happened again last year with the Dr. Touchy piece, people sought me out to talk about the piece, wanted to understand why I would go to a place of humor on this subject, and left not only better friends or new friends with me, but profoundly empowered and encouraged. And that's, for me, the purpose of the art. The thing for me on the humor was, I feel like, it took a lot of years, but I think I'm entitled to the full emotional range of my own experience. Not just entitled, I think it's kind of my job. Right. If I really want to be a whole healed person, to step in, take the whole emotional range.
And humor's catastrophe.
Yeah, take it all, and be able to laugh.
And this whole thing, this is not the first time I've heard this from Steph about Touchy. When Curt and Steph came to me about the seed kernel idea of the effect, this conversation and this sense of how can a piece be, how can a piece affect someone, affect, not effect, is what kind of got me on the same page as the two of them, saying, ooh, yeah, let's do that, because the effect was designed intentionally from the beginning to be hard, not easy art. Starfish was easy art, not necessarily to build, but it was pretty, it was playful, you climbed on it, you got in the thing, and then we burned it down. Yay. Right. It wasn't mentally challenging, it wasn't psychologically challenging.
Touchy hard art, just for friends?
Touchy is hard art.
Okay. It can get pretty hard.
And the effect was going to be hard art.
It's going to get really hard.
Yeah. But it was deliberate, and shut up.
That was also deliberate.
Yeah, I know. Fuck you. And having heard Stephanie have this kind of perspective about what the art could be made me comfortable in stepping into the project that became known as The Effect. Because at that point it didn't have a name.
Right. Well, let's go back to where the idea was first sparked. It was
Curt
and Steph.
Well, before we get into that, look. Okay, so we do Touchy. Meg's got her hand in several different pots. The one that got the three of us, or the two of us, interested in what she was doing with Paul was Highest Balls.
Yeah.
And that was a fun place for us to go and build and play with. For me, it was fun because it wasn't my problem, right? Yeah. I got to go in there. I got to literally throw some chains around and grind some shit and do my thing. But I didn't have to worry about the paperwork. I didn't have to worry about how this was actually getting out to the fly, that sort of thing. And Meg and Paul were playing with that, and I thought, hey, that's cool. I'll deal with that. Stephanie was involved in that one. She had a good time with it. And then we went to the fly and helped build, mostly for early entry.
Early entry or no entry, bitches!
So we could consume more dust that year.
Right.
It was necessary.
So anyway, to go full circle back to that, we've never really stopped doing it.
No, Curt and I have been working together.
We haven't stopped. I got her to move in. So, yeah, it is a...
Her Stephanie.
Yeah. Meg does not live
Meg
here.
does not live here.
Kurt's not in jail.
That would be a result.
So this is, for us, for me, this is a fun leadership team. For me and Meg, fuck, man, we've done it for so long in so many different ways of playing in this leadership role back and forth with each other that we've just really learned to like or dislike for each other. It's fascinating. We play well together. Even if that's not completely visible from the outside. And Stephanie's my partner, and we do actually get along, I think.
Most of the time, as far as I can tell, you two seem pretty secure.
This is a pretty easy place to go, hey, I've got this idea. What do you two think? And once you start pushing that ball down the hill, fuck, man, it just goes.
He literally put a post on Facebook. He's like, "Hey, it's something art something Meg," and he just tagged me in it. And I came in like 3 minutes later. I was like, "Fuck you, maybe." Yeah, all right, fuck you. I'm in. Whatever. It took 5 minutes to get from "fuck you" to "I'm in." So
that's success. What was the idea?
There was no idea. There was actually literally no idea put out.
What did you want to do?
I started thinking about this rat in a cage idea in my head, and it was just a simple thing, and I went, hey, I've got this crazy idea to build art again, Meg.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
That's just where, and that just started.
That's where the 5 minutes of fuck you happened.
Yeah.
And then we just start going into, we start pushing this, we start doing this thing with this boulder, and we're watching it roll down the hill, and we're like, fuck, and sometimes we get under it, and sometimes we get behind it, and it's just, it was interesting, and it evolved into this piece. The piece for me started like this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay?
Less metaphorical. I mean, like in your explanation, there's a lot of discussion about balls rolling down hills and stuff.
You want to talk about my balls, or you don't?
No, please no.
Not rolling down a hill anyway.
Really get all up in there.
No. So the piece wasn't a political piece, but the inspiration came from what was happening just right around the election and right past the election. And I'm just watching all these people kind of explode or implode or whatever it may be online, and they're just like, oh my God, the world is over and this is a terrible type of thing. And I'm watching it, and the idea floats into my head about, we talk about being a post-racial society, and that's in my head, and I'm watching this election and all the racism that's kind of happening and triggering people, and I'm like, yeah, no matter what though, the people of color are always going to be inside of this whitewashed cage. They're always going to be there. They're never going to be. Are they ever going to be able to get out of the white picket fence, as it were? And so I start going into this rat in a cage idea, and the piece was tending towards political, and then through our conversations we changed it to more of a metaphorical piece around all of our suffering, all of our pain, what we do to hide our inside of ourselves while we go through the trouble of the facade and how pretty that facade is. But inside, we're not really dealing with the demons. And I think that really resonated with the other people that were involved. These two, we had a couple of other people that were really heavily involved in this kind of decision-making of where the art piece was going.
I remember...
I just watched it.
Yeah, I remember when, we talked about it just a little tiny bit, but then there's this thing that we go to every year called Practice Thanksgiving. A friend of ours hosts Thanksgiving the week before Thanksgiving at his parents' house, and everybody comes and they bring you're supposed to practice whatever you're making for Thanksgiving and bring it. And we're up at Practice Thanksgiving, and all three of us are smokers, and so we're out in the driveway having a cigarette, planning fucking art, going over things and pulling ideas and throwing shit out, and half the time we were there, I think, was spent with the three of us, and occasionally somebody else dropping into the conversation and leaving, and just playing with the idea. And Curt kept saying, he kept talking about the cage, and he was very focused on how pretty the cage was and the metaphor for the facade that we all build. And I just kept thinking about the rat and the demons and the psychological aspects of what we keep inside. And this was right at the same time that I was finishing up the last of my applications for my PhD program, so I was very focused on ways to describe the things that happen in your own brain and how to look at them and how to bring them out. Mm-hmm. So I was in a place already where I was listening to the psychological implications of basically anything. Like, nobody could say anything to me without me, like, analyzing the living shit out of it.
Yeah.
And so he kept saying all these things, and I just kept building more and more images in my head of not just the rat itself, but what would it look like inside the rat. And that's when we started coming up with these concepts of the rat being hollow and being something inside of it. And that's when I was just, like, sealed in. It was like, nope, that's it. I don't even care. I will do one more massive piece of art before I, like, run off and hide in academia. So it, like, I just remember Curt being really super fucking passionate about it. And I remember Stephanie seeming a little bit hesitant. Like a little, like, dude, this is a big thing. Are we really fucking gonna, like, jump in here and do some shit like this? And I remember just being like, shit, now we gotta build a thing.
Were you hesitant?
Yes and no. I would say...
It's not a very hesitant answer.
No, it's a very lawyer-like answer. Right? I think it's that too many years of practicing law where it depends. I mean, sure.
Alternative facts.
I mean, I'm 52 years old. I'm grown up. I've been around the sun enough times to know, and I've been, with Curt for pushing 4 years. I've been around big projects and relationships enough to know that doing big projects in your relationship is, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And so hesitant, I think, is the wrong word. Conscientiously attentive, aware.
I'm sorry, clarification for listeners, meaning, like, it can be a strain on a relationship to create such a massive project.
Oh my God. Well,
with your partner.
Not only just, so if it were a massive project that we're, building bricks, and that it was straightforward and everybody had a very clear shared goal, that's hard to do. The number of hours, we already serve on the board of directors together. We're both hub leads for Utopia. We spend a lot of our life in the burn community together. And so, you add another major in the burn community together thing, that's significant. But the additional factor in this one is it's making art. And now I've made art with Curt before, and the touchy pieces were, I learned one of the important and beautiful things about collaborative art, which is it can mean something different to you than it means to me, even though we're collaborating on making it together. Right. But this piece, and we certainly experienced this as we were moving forward in its development, the further we developed this piece, the more significant this piece became to me personally. Yeah. For me, this piece, the effect, and I expect that you will see the effect on Playa in 2018. That's my goal at this point.
Certainly hope so.
And I was not willing to try to figure out how to raise the money in this burn cycle, but I'm going to try to do it for next year. This piece for me is in many ways an expression of the pain of my life, the struggle of my life, it's and the joy, right? Building art, building burn art. I came to Burning Man in 2009 for the first time, already in my 40s, and I was well along the path of being a much more grounded, happy, centered person. But I spent, a decade with clinical depression and clinical anxiety, hospitalized on and off the 9 yards. And This piece for me, the fact that I'm in a state where I'm capable of biting off and chewing a project of this size, because I can. God, that's an enormous celebration, and it's incredible and awesome. But this piece means a lot to me. Is powerful to me, and I believe has the capacity to be powerful for other people. And so taking on a piece, and that was true with Touchy, but differently so.
Well, what is it? So what is it that this piece, what is the part that resonates with you? What is the part that it connects with you on? Because we've heard from Meg and Curt on the meetings behind it.
The most important thing to me about the piece is that it's designed in such a way that the cage in which this rat is trapped and has clearly been trying to get out of for a long, long time could frankly be easily escaped.
So this would be a good time to explain what the art piece actually is supposed to, or what's supposed
to look like.
So it's a rat, in simple terms, it's a rat in a cage. 8 curved columns that bend toward each other at the top, open at the top.
It kind of reminded me of Deep Space Nine.
You're not alone.
So when you go through these things and people are like, what was your inspiration? You're like, oh my god, I'm a fucking genius. I just popped this up, and then they show you a picture of Deep Space Nine and you're all, fuck.
That is exactly what happened, by the way. That's exactly what happened. Like, he shows us this thing, and we're like, Deep Space Nine! Yeah. Excellent!
And so I look up Deep Space Nine, sure as shit.
You drew it out, the original sketch?
This is his original cardboard model.
I can't draw, so I made a cardboard model.
Oh, okay.
And, so it's Deep Space Nine. And so then we start going through and we're getting some of these designs out, and one of my long-term friends from San Diego goes, hey, that's the Drew Ford building. And I'm like, no shit.
And it totally is.
Sure as shit, it's the Drew Ford building in La Mesa. Fuck. I think I've just got shit trapped in there, right?
Well, in my experience, I mean, like I've had multiple writings and comic book characters I've created where, like, you look at something, you describe it to somebody, they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly so-and-so. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Right. How is that possible?
Right.
But really what it is that we're all this pot, and, like, we're getting all the same ingredients thrown into the stew.
Jungian collective conscious.
We're making different stews, but it's the same ingredients, so it's bound to come out with some of the same shit.
Sure.
So anyway, so Deep Space Nine, and so it's a rat in a cage. It can easily be escaped. Back to what you were saying, Stephanie.
Yeah, no. So it's a rat in a cage, and it feels trapped, and is in fact trapped because it feels trapped.
Yeah. But it could easily get out.
But actually, if you look at the way that it's constructed, it could just get out.
Right.
Welcome to life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to be ready. It's not just that there's a doorway out. You have to see it and walk through. And that is, for me, the progress of 30 years in therapy.
Right. It's because a lot of people have that escape, and mind you, this topic that we're discovering right now, it's been the topic of pretty much every episode of this show at some point. Like, it comes up about, like, I knew that I could change my life. I knew that I didn't have to keep doing this, or I didn't know, and then finally something snapped. I got pushed through the door. Sometimes not to my own decision, not my own desire. It just happened. Or sometimes, people find Burning Man, or they find Utopia, like I did. That was my first discovery. And you say, oh shit, there's this whole other world that I can explore that I didn't know was out there.
That's why they consider it a transformative event. I joked for years after my first burn. I was like, I have no idea what you people are fucking talking about.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to realize this because I didn't need it anymore because I'd already had it at Utopia. Like, I didn't know that. I went to Burning Man expect, like, now I will be changed. Yeah. My chakras are still misaligned, motherfuckers. What the hell's going on?
You don't have the right crystals, first of all.
My butt crystals are failing. Thank you, Dominic.
Did you leave them out in the sun?
I must have left. I think I didn't put them in the appropriate moon.
Full moon, people.
Oh, is it? Oh, no, that's what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing it in new moon.
In retrograde or something?
It's something. It's a transformative counterculture. Right. That's what the burn community is, by basically any definition of it. because just what you're saying, and you're right, it's come up in nearly every show we've ever recorded that, and then something changed.
Yeah.
And it was because of this.
And the cage could be seen as like any one of us could be that rat, and that cage is this life plan that we think the world has laid out for us and is demanding we're supposed to follow all the way to the end, and then but it's so easy to snap out of it.
Well, it
That's
is
one of them.
right. I was going to
What
say,
is?
and
What you just said is one of the rats in the cage. It's one of the things.
it's one of the cages.
It could go. You could literally go on. We could do a whole podcast just on the different
Aspects
ways
of
Right.
how we're
the rat in the cage.
because that's the other part. That's the part Stephanie didn't describe. Is the rat that's inside this cage, which is fucking huge, is hollow. You can and it's designed and intended for you to crawl inside of it, and the interior of the rat is covered in art. That is
How high is the rat?
7 feet.
he's 7 feet tall.
7 feet. Okay.
So inside is slightly you would be uncomfortable inside because you would have to stoop.
Right.
Intentionally so.
Intentionally,
A,
it's
fuck you,
deliberate.
You're tall. And B, we
want the
you
discomfort.
uncomfortable in there.
Our intention
How do you
was
crawl into the cage, into the rat?
There's a door.
There's a door.
Where's
But
the door?
it's
Probably his ass.
It's
Okay,
side.
that's
We had
what I was
pretty
wondering.
much come to the
it's side.
It's on his haunch.
Okay.
I wanted it to be crawl up through his asshole. We couldn't quite figure out how to make that work and be safe and not kill people. So
Also, it's a little
I got
X factor.
I got a little shot down on that one. But I don't want to kill anyone with my art. What we were going to have was art pieces that we had solicited from the community, paintings, sculptures, drawings that represented their inner demons, whatever that meant to them. We were going to give them some parameters so that it all fit inside and things like that. But then, we were just going to take all these art pieces that came from the community that were individual artists' expressions of what their own struggles with those internal demons were, and light the inside of the rat in a discomforting red. Make the physical interior slightly uncomfortable, not like physically painful, but you gotta stoop, you gotta crawl, you can't just like walk in and look around like it's an art gallery. Yeah. And then interspersed with the art pieces was going to be warped mylar that we use as a reflective surface, so that there is no place inside the rat where you're not either looking at a demon or looking at yourself, which is the same fucking thing. And that was the part that sold me, was we can evoke the need in people to deal with and address those things that keep them inside the cage.
Right.
That's really, for me, what the Touchy series really shifted in me, and what this piece really made clear for me, is, I've talked about it a lot with people. I considered myself theatrical for many years. I did a lot of acting, a lot of singing, a lot of that sort of stuff. And since I've been a part of the burn community, I've helped build. I've certainly never called myself an artist, and didn't relate to that term at all. And it was after we did not get the grant for this piece, when I literally had that feeling of, the person you were sure you were going to spend the rest of your life with just like out of the blue broke up with you, or, grief. I mean, I was grief stricken for a minute, more than a minute, for a bit. And, it felt like this thing, this particular piece of expression that I don't have, I have way too many words for, right? You can't express it in words because it takes a book, it cannot live. And it kind of felt like I was going to die for a little bit there.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, oh, welcome to being an artist. Mm-hmm. But the invitation, and Curt was instrumental in this journey for me, to coming to the place of discovering that I don't have to have incredibly gifted technical artistic skills to communicate that which you can only communicate through visual art or experiential art.
Right. You're making the mistake that most people make, is that thinking that craft is art.
Mm-hmm.
But craft is something you learn. Art is something that creates inside of you.
Sure, and it's not. Don't get me wrong. I've spent a lot of time with art and artists, and I have always considered myself. I can be a fine craftsperson, but I wasn't confusing those two things. I didn't think that actually I had the creative impetus to express the unexpressible in this particular form. To support other people in doing so, absolutely. But it didn't feel like a desperate internal call. And instead, I think the mistake that I made is to stay involved long enough to become one. And because it is both an incredible gift, but man, like all of the great gifts, right? They come with suffering.
Yeah.
And fuck, man, I want to share this thing so badly.
Yeah.
So badly.
Mine wasn't exactly the same as Steph's, because I do consider myself an artist. I've always considered myself an artist. I was a performance artist when I was younger. I painted for a very, very long time. I'm good at expression. This was a blow to my ego, though, because this is the first thing I've ever sent to B-Morg and said, hey, you should give me money to do the thing, and had them say no. The first time. This is the first time B-Morg has turned me down for something. For art-based, not counting the regional contact stuff. Honestly, there was a part of me that was like, oh, we're a shoo-in, whatever. And so when we got the no...
I thought you were a shoo-in. Yeah.
When we got the no, I was
when you were saying words
blown
like
away.
If, I was like, really? You guys think you're not going to get this?
I was being that kind of false humility that you've seen me do a million times, where I pretend that I'm being humble about some shit and I'm not. I had no expectation that they were going to say no. Yeah. I thought they were going to give us everything we asked for, and it was going to be fucking rad. And so it was a huge blow to my ego, to my self-perception, to the cage that I've built for myself in this community and what I do here. It was rough. It was also a huge relief. I will not even fucking lie. There was a huge relief. And oh, thank God we don't have to fucking build it.
Yeah.
Shit. Now what do I do? I still want to see it. I still want to see it happen. I want it to live. I want it to be. I want other people to be in it and experience it in whatever fashion they are driven to by what we create. It was really strange. Yeah. The whole concept of, no, you're not. We were all, yes, we are. Yes, we are. We were setting it up. We had build days already set aside. Collab was already reserving space for us. We were learning how to use the CNC so that we could do all the big cuts, which was going to take us 80 fucking days or something. We were lining everything up, ready to start on the 3rd of March. We were supposed to hear by the 3rd. And so Curt and I literally had semi-plans to go pick up the SD cap grant from Cable on the 4th so we could go to Home Depot.
Well, let me go back. I'm going to get a clarification on the timeline there. So you guys come up with sort of a design that you're going to pitch to BMWorld. Around when-ish do you do that? What month was it?
That we pitch it?
Yeah, that you submit to BMWorld.
Right. Well, before we get to that,
there's more in the timeline.
I want to say something about art, right?
No.
In Stephanie's defense, if y'all don't think that there's some sort of art to dealing with me in a relationship, don't sell her short on that.
It doesn't have to be in a relationship. Right. We're all artists when we pick up what you call, motherfucker. It's shit, it's Curt.
And I have a well-honed craft.
So when you're putting these proposals together, I consider myself a fucking artist. I consider her an artist, Meg, I pointed at, and I consider Stephanie an artist. As you can't tell, there's no shortage of words coming out of our mouths. Right?
We got the words down.
But we're able to craft these proposals that are actually really, really pretty. And we don't limit ourselves in a character count or anything like that. We go through and we write. And we're like so fucking impressed with ourselves. That's like the ego surrounding the art that we think that we're doing, right? But then you have to go through and go, okay, now they're limiting that to 250 characters.
Not words, characters.
Don't you dare tell me how to downsize my art.
I'm sorry, I just want more clarification for the listeners who are not familiar with this process on how exactly this works.
That's what I'm kind of trying to talk about. Lots of words again. So you come up with an idea, and you have to keep going through, and you have to keep hammering out the idea with each other until you come up with some sort of collaborative vision that you're all okay with. You've all given some here and taken some there, and there you go. So now you have to start writing this stuff down. The grant process for a large-scale piece is long. It's tedious, and it took us probably a good month to get from head to paper what we needed to say. So we're dealing with this around Thanksgiving. We know that we want to get this proposal in early December.
Letter of intent was due December 5th or 6th, something like that, I think.
So
December 2016.
You send in your letter of intent, and it's a downsized version of your proposal. And the reason that BMorg asks you to send in a letter of intent is so they can weed through crap. Right.
It's the outline before the actual screenplay.
Exactly.
So we get that in time, early December, and we'll know by late December if we get our get approval to go ahead and send them a full proposal.
Right.
Where other people had to wait until January.
They had a nice window. If you got it in the first 5 days or something, then they guaranteed you would know before the end of December. If you got it in after the 5th or 7th or something of December, then you had to wait until January when they sent out all the letters.
Right.
So we got it in early.
We wanted to get that in early, so we worked really, really hard, lots of long hours typing on a computer and getting back and forth, lots of phone calls, lots of emails to get something that we were really comfortable with. In their fucking character count. And that's what we submit, waiting for, after that we wait for the LOI to come back with hey, sure, now do more work with a full proposal. That one, timeline-wise, we find out end of December that it's a go. We have to get that thing done, the full proposal done by end of January. And it does take that amount of time because you have to get your full budget in, line items of budget, all that sort of stuff.
Structural drawings, engineering plan.
We're going to burn it, so we had to deal with
a fire plan,
fire effects, and all that sort of
fire
stuff.
plan.
So there's a lot of work that goes into this paperwork for this grant process, which I actually really enjoy.
I love that part, actually. Curt and I would spend forever tweaking one sentence. And then we're we're over by 32 characters, and we take out one word, we're 27, one word, 18, shit! Then we have to rewrite the whole sentence because no longer makes any goddamn sense. Fuck. Okay, and we rewrite and rewrite and rewrite.
Project proposal or
yes.
tweet?
No, it's the project proposal. It's not word count, and this is the frustrating part. Anybody who's planning on putting in an honorary grant for BMorg, it's character count. That includes spaces, punctuation. Every letter counts.
Yeah. Right. And so you get to make decisions do you really need a comma before the buts? Are we past that in
fuck the Oxford
anyway?
comma. And literally, you're sending this thing in where your inner English teacher is screaming at you because you didn't double space between the words or whatever. And you're and Curt and I, and Steph too, we would sit down in this room together, Curt on his big computer, me and Steph both on our laptops, with the same document open in front of us, and we would each just take a section and start typing. Yeah. And then I'd be okay, when you guys get a chance, can you go back up and take a look at the who we are part about our art collective? And they'd go up and they'd be I love this sentence, and I love this sentence, and oh my God, Meg, you're a bitch, that's awesome, yes! this is way too fucking long. And then we would all stop and come in and hone a piece. And it was actually probably more fun than it had any right to be.
Yeah, it's totally fun.
It was amazing. That was a really, like, the last day that we got together when we were basically finalizing everything except the engineering schematics, was maybe one of the most fun meetings that we'd had this entire time. Because it was literally just the three of us writing some snarky shit and some great shit and really breaking down everything that meant something to us in this project. And it was really fucking cool.
It's fun.
Yeah. So you go through this whole process, you write this out. So this is the full proposal.
The full proposal, which was
Yeah.
18 pages.
18 pages. Wow. And that got turned in when?
Not including the video that we shot that had a link to it, or all of
any
the
of
work
the
that Ramiro
pictures.
did that was the result of his architectural work, or the illustration work, or the painting that our friend did for us. That was, I mean, you know, there were
Images and videos
hundreds
and all kinds of things in with it.
The purpose of the video was fundraising?
Let's take this opportunity just for 1 second. Jake Tyson, thank you for your work on that
Yeah.
video. Darren
Woo, Jake,
Cohen,
yes.
thank you for that art piece.
That was a
Ramiro,
Yeah.
Ramiro, Brooke, Paul,
Brooke,
everybody who was
Paul,
like right up there in the beginning.
Marie did some work on our
Marie.
sticker stuff.
And Missy Cat, 3D
Cat,
animation.
Missy Cat,
animation.
fuck
Wow.
yeah, because otherwise the rat would still not be done.
So,
Yeah, it takes a village, and we have one.
art and building community via art. I mean, we just keep bringing people in that have the want or desire to help out in these pieces.
And this was
the
just
three of us
in the
do not have
proposal
the skill
stage.
set to get this shit done.
Yeah.
But our community does, and it's about reaching out and bringing other people in.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't even gotten anywhere near where we had gotten without those people. It was beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Really pretty to watch.
So we sent it in the end of January when it was due. We didn't wait until the last possible minute, but we were, I think, a day and a half out or something from the deadline, because we were polishing, because we're obsessive. And then it was just wait. We knew that we would know by March 3rd. So in the meantime, we started looking into fundraising. That was mostly Stephanie. We started, talking about how we were going to do, were we going to do a Kickstarter, were we going to do a GoFundMe, turns out we were going to do something completely different than anything I'd done before.
How much did you need?
Close to $27,000.
Yeah.
And we were asking B-Morg for about half. And so also the San Diego Collaborative Arts Project made a grant for us, which we didn't cash the check, obviously, of about 15% of the project. So we still had about 35% of the total to raise. But, one of the
That
great
was
things...
an amount we felt we could do.
Right. That in one build cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, we had another 10,000 roughly that we were going to have to put together, and I can visualize where that comes from in a reasonable period of time. 26 is, or 22 is, I can't visualize where that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Curt and I had done that before. Curt and I have raised that kind of money. That's what Starfish cost. I mean, these two projects were remarkably similar in their budget and their timelines. Not necessarily in their intent or in their complexity, but as far as money was concerned, So, I knew on some levels that it was possible, but I wasn't interested. I was not interested in trying to raise $30,000 for something to burn down again. And neither was Curt, because we've been through that process and it sucks. That kind of fundraising is hard on everybody because there's only so much money in any given community.
Right.
And everybody wants the same buck you do. It depends on how many people are trying to build something for the burn, how many people are trying to build something for Utopia. But you can only have so many fundraisers asking for the same money out of people.
Yeah.
Before, our art is taking away from somebody else's art. And there's all these things that go on in your head because San Diego is a big community. It's a reasonably well-to-do community compared to some other burn communities. I've talked to people from places where they don't even give art grants for their regional because they don't have any money for that kind of thing.
Right.
It just doesn't exist for them.
We have a pretty big burner
We have a
population.
big burner population, and there are some people in it who are better off than others, yes, like any other cultural group. But we do pretty good in San Diego in terms of getting things funded, in terms of getting projects built. We have a huge build community. We have a huge number of artists. And there's enough money to generally get a few things built. But chasing down that kind of money is a full-time job in a project like this. If we had tried to build it anyway, one of the three of us would no longer be an artist builder person on this project, and they would just be a chasing the dollars person on this project. And that's not what any of the three of us signed on for.
No.
And
when you asked BM Org for that half, did you have a precedent for the possibility of them paying that amount, or was it kind of a
honorariums get a totally different kind of grant money than, say, regional projects. Regional projects get
describe what an
pittance.
honorarium is and what the differences are?
Honoraria grants are when you go out and you see the stuff that's in Deep Playa, in past Esplanade, all that stuff, everything that's in there, those are honoraria art projects. Those are almost all.
Percentage.
There are a few who didn't get money but get that kind of placement, and they did offer us placement if we wanted to fund it ourselves. That's the real art, man. That's the stuff that, like, that was one of the things Curt and I talked about, was why does this feel different as we were filling out the application? It's because we're going after the real artist money. The regional projects, there was always, at least in my mind, and I led three of the fuckers, there was always this concept of, well, they have to let everybody play. But they don't give a whole lot of money to that. They give basically a token amount, which you don't even get all of until after the burn, because they hold back to make sure that you brought the project and in case you need more wood or random stuff.
Yeah, regional projects are more designed at getting the community
to come together and build something and bring it out.
But the honoraria projects are more like the real.
These are artists. These are David Best. These are Lotus Temple. These are the Flaming Lotus Girls. These are the people who get honoraria grants.
Playing in the big boy sandbox.
Yes, exactly. And that trying to. And like Curt and I actually talked to each other about that, about like, this feels different. And it took us a little bit. We're like, we're not fucking around anymore. We're calling ourselves artists and we're meaning it. Yeah. And we're trying to play in the big leagues. And so the honorary grants are the projects that Burning Man wants to see bad enough that they want to give them money. They gave away like $1.2 million in honorary grants this year. Wow. To a pile of projects, like 65 projects.
Close, plus or minus.
I don't remember. They sent us the information, but I was butthurt, and so I wasn't paying attention.
In terms of the question about, do they grant that much money? I think in the guidelines they said that they rarely give more than 20.
Yeah.
And
we were like, okay, well, we're not asking for 20.
And
right
they
on.
Had 550 plus
applications.
Full applications. That's not including that was after the LOIs were winnowed down.
LOI means
the letters of intent.
Okay.
So 550 plus full grant applications. They gave out 65 or so for $1 million too.
Wow. Is there a number of applications that they approve, or is it just when the money counts?
I think I'm not on that committee, so I don't for sure know how that goes, and I'm actually planning to ask Katie about it when I see her in a week and a half.
I seriously doubt that it goes up to like, hey, we'll just keep approving them until the money runs out, and sorry, that stack didn't get to.
Yeah,
I think
it gets winnowed out, and they look at stuff, and they eliminate. They're like, yeah, we're just not going to do this one, and they don't give us a reason per se. You get the standard like, there were so many amazing things submitted and we could only fund $1.2 million and you don't get any. I mean, it's a form letter, but it's a lovely form letter. It's not
No, it's very
you suck.
encouraging. It's as burner as it could be. It's burnier than thou.
It's a super Bernie letter.
So they don't tell you specifically why
They don't
you
tell
did
us specifically why we didn't. It helps that I kind of know some of those people, and I'm going to the GLC, and I'm going to ask, how do we do this better for next time?
Yeah.
Because you don't have that information, and that's one of the parts that's difficult about this. Is
it's interesting.
You don't know.
It's interesting. Also, there was one project out of San Diego that we're aware of that was funded out of the honorary project this year.
Not that we're aware of. We went through the list. It's the only one from here.
Okay, the only one from here. Who knows if there's who has connections to what, but one project that was funded. And I think, it's clearly it's a great project. I'm so excited. He brought a piece of it to Utopia last year. What's the artist's name?
Marco, congratulations.
Yeah, Marco, woo!
It's the only thing I can remember is Muerte.
La Santísima Muerte.
That's right.
That.
Which one was that?
It was up on Indian Flats across from the temple. It was the big wings, the lenticular plastic wings with the moving lights that looked like a spirit.
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead kind of.
I don't remember.
Oh, it was gorgeous. It was
Death,
amazing.
Ghost,
Death,
angel,
ghost, angel
Angel
something.
of Death, I think.
Yeah.
Or
And
something like that.
And he's expanding it for this.
For the burn.
I've seen the artwork. It looks beautiful.
Right.
But anyway.
It's a great project, and I'm really proud that somebody from San Diego.
This year, the burn?
Radical Ritual.
Radical Ritual. So
Is that a contributing
It's possible.
factor?
It's probable
sure, right?
that there is.
The thing I was going to say, though, is at least from what I've read about it and from the handful of people I've talked to about it, they're doing a series of different things on Playa, right? They're trying to demonstrate major art that there's nowhere else will be demonstrated. The wild boar last year, where are you going to see that?
Yeah.
The stained glass mama and baby whale with Android Jones stained glass, where you're only going to see that at Burning Man. Those things are going to get funded. And they're obviously only getting a piece of their funding. Right. But the Victrola last year, those are three projects, none of which had anything to do with last year's theme. Mm. At least not that I'm sure I could have parlayed a few words to make it sound like they related to the
Which
theme,
we totally did in our application.
It's not, so they don't, the theme is not a requirement for funding by any stretch. But whether a tie-in to it is relevant, sure. There were lots of projects
and it may
that
just
were
be
funded last year that were related to
even if it's not necessary, it may be an unacknowledged bias in the back of people's heads too. They're looking at things and they're seeing it tie in, and they're not thinking, oh well, this fits with the theme really well, but there is something in their head that makes something stand out more than something else because it fits better. And I don't know that. But and I'm not accusing anybody of bias.
They're also funding things.
Is the committee, I'm sorry, is it am I thinking of the wrong committee? Are they spread out across the world, or is this all at BM that they're making that decision?
We're not exactly sure who is exactly on that committee. There's different grant committees that are spread out. So I'm not exactly sure how big of a role the outside people play in that versus the inside. Right. I know that there's ones for civic art, committees for civic art. There's committees for playa art. So I don't really know how they have that structured or how they have that set up.
Right.
And I really don't think that you can nail down all the players on those committees. You might know a couple of names.
Right.
But you're probably not going to be able to nail them all down.
When I used to, a few years ago, I talked to Warren, who is the guy who does basically the civic grants, or did at the time, which is a committee of people who don't live in San Francisco. They're not at BMorg, but those are not playa projects. Those are civic art projects that happen in different places around the world that get funded. And that's, like Nicole Hickman, who's been on the show before, was a member of that committee. And you go in 1 year as a person being mentored, and then the second year you're the mentor for the new people coming in. And they determine, I think the years Nicole did it, it was like 6 or 7 global art grants that went out to 6 or 7 different artists. Dominic Moretto is on that committee now. This was his first year. it was my understanding at the time, the last time I talked to Warren about it, that there wasn't a connection between the Global Art Grants Committee and the Honoraria Committee.
Right.
That there at that time were not anybody who sat on both. So that may still be the case. That may not. I don't know. Right. Katie Hazard has taken over. It used to be Betty June when Curt and I first started.
Different person. The person didn't change names.
No.
I was going to say in this community, you know.
Betty has an amazing kid, and she, went to go spend time with her amazing kid, and Katie took over. And, and they just happened to be people we knew because we've been on this carousel a couple of times.
Right.
And, so we have forged relationships with them, and so... when we have the opportunity to ask how to do it better, we're gonna.
Right.
So.
What was your level of certainty that you'd get approval, Curt?
There was no doubt in my mind that we were going to get this. But that part of it makes it a little bit more painful.
Right? It painful to the ego.
But there was a lot of very interesting things in this piece. That I thought that they would go for. And I also think that while we didn't build the piece around theme, it nailed theme. We just kind of got lucky with that, right? And so it was a large-scale project. It's pretty, it's interactive. We're going to burn it down. And we had a track record of proving that we could do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Over the years. And so, I was pretty certain that we were going to get it. So now my curiosity is, why didn't we? Yeah. Please tell me that it was something that we wrote, that we need to change. Maybe our budget sucked. Could you give me a place, a specific, or were you guys just not feeling it?
Yeah.
I don't know if knowing any of that is going to feel any better. But
I was not at all certain that we were going to get the grant. I felt like I absolutely believed that it's a project worthy of their funding. That, if they had the money to do all the projects they wanted to fund, they would have funded this project. In terms of, I've been going to Burning Man, this will be my 9th burn. This is really good Burning Man art. It crosses off.
It ticks all the boxes.
It ticks the boxes for what I'm looking for.
Right.
Certainly for what I can almost only find at Burning Man at this scale. Some other regional burns are doing work at this scale, and sure, it's not that there aren't festivals or events that do big work, but specifically with respect to the interactivity and the collaborative pieces, and at this kind of scale, right. Beautiful day and night, different day and night. But I was just as brokenhearted. What's interesting to me is I think I did not have expectation, for sure, that we'd be getting the money by any stretch. But I was grief stricken.
So when they sent you the rejection letter, you said they gave you placement still, or they
offered us placement still, and they do that for a lot of projects that don't get funding. They said if you still want to come, here's how you fill out the thing asking for placement, and
let's
we're already on the radar. And, it's totally a let's still be friends kind of thing.
100% of art that wants to be placed at Burning Man will be placed at Burning Man. Whether you apply for an honoraria project or not, if you if you apply for placement, they will place you. There is not a rule about, there's no committee that says this art can or cannot come. It's just a question of whether or not they'll fund it. You may not get the placement you want. You may not be, they may stick you out in the middle of, Timbuktu at the trash fence.
Mm.
But that's one of, I think think it's important to say that.
It's
and
very
that
important.
People understand that about Burning Man and about the opportunity to bring art to Burning Man. Is if you want to bring art, you can absolutely bring art, and you get with Art at Burning Man on the website, and you say, I'd like to have my art placed, and they will place it, and it will be on the map, and
But the grant feels almost like yes, it's necessary. Like yes, it's hard to raise that much money, but it also on top of that, even if it was a smaller amount you're asking for, it feels like it's an approval from Burning Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're giving you our blessing, and we kind of think what you're doing is pretty cool.
Of course, I want to be labeled as an honorary project, right?
Yeah.
But I also can get past that, right? So sure, yeah, it's an approval thing. It would have been nice.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. It certainly doesn't stop you. You can raise the funds, and because we have filled out the honoraria stuff, they give you access to tickets, not free tickets. They'll give you access to purchase tickets. Right. They'll give you access to early arrivals and all that sort of stuff. They go out of their way to help you get your piece there, just not financially, and that's basically what most people need is the financial help.
It's expensive taking a piece of art to play. It doesn't matter what. I mean, you remember last year with Cabina. It costs more than you think it's gonna. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, Curt and I really had an awareness of what does it actually cost to drag this shit out there, because we've done this before, and so we know, but a lot of artists don't know, and they get to the end and they can't afford the gas for the truck and whatever. And so stuff like honorary grants or, grants for regional projects, whatever, they mean a lot to artists, especially artists who haven't done it before. Like with Starfish in 13, Curt had been really involved in Carousel the year before, and I was around for Carousel. I took a lot of pictures. That's about all I did. Painted some shit. I was around for Quemado del Sol. Again, in a really minor, here, paste this full foil paper on stuff kind of way. So we had seen it. We had been part of it, and we went out when we sat down to do Starfish. It was like, oh shit. And it was more oh shit for Curt, because I was, kind of still playing at, do I even want to be part of this community? Because I actually called Curt in 15 with Dr. Balls and said, dude, I probably never said thank you, but I really probably fucking should have, because this sucks. Fuck this paperwork so hard. You get used to having a certain level of involvement with the people at B Morgan, the people at Burning Man who help the artists, who work with the artists. I've never been to Playa without having to go to the Artery for some reason. Yeah. I've never been to Playa without big ass art of some nature. I can't imagine I would go if I didn't take art, actually, because I don't actually like Burning Man that much. I like taking my art to Burning Man. I don't like dust, hot, dirty, loud noise at 3 a.m. There's a lot of shit I really fucking don't like about Burning Man. Yeah. But I fucking love taking art there. And this project was hard for me, right from the start, because I was like, I cannot go this year. There is no fucking way I can go to Burning Man. And I'm building a big ass fucking... Because that's the whole reason I went for the first time, was I was like, I spent all year building this Starfish. I am going to fucking Burning Man so that it can die. Yeah. Because fuck this thing.
I must see the fucking...
I must see it burn down to the ground.
From... I don't know if you know the answer to this. How often do people reapply the next year, as you guys are planning to do?
For the same project?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't know how many people... you definitely don't know how many people get denied.
You said it's about 500 applicants, and then about 200 got it.
Right, but we don't know what those.
No,
we don't know what those
65 got it.
65 got it out of
Yeah.
like 500 applicants.
Yeah.
But we don't.
550.
550. Wow.
We don't know what those applicants submitted.
Right.
We happen to know a couple of them in San Diego that submitted and were also denied.
Were they good ones?
Yes.
Oh my God.
The
Yes.
journey.
The
holy
journey.
fuck, is, to me, I thought that they were a lock.
Yeah.
And they
It's
also
an amazing
got,
project.
They also got denied.
Which
for
was
their
fascinating
grant.
because in talking to them, I thought that they were a lock too, and one of their project leads, when I was talking with Lee Hemingway, and hey, Lee and Dan, you guys are amazing. Lee was saying, "Oh, I actually wasn't sure we were going to get funded, but I was certain you guys were." I mean, it's one of these fascinating things, right?
That's funny.
And the beautiful things about building in community with other artists who share this passion is the radical support for and buy-in that you get for what you're trying to accomplish and what you're doing. It's just amazing.
I know that there are projects that get funded more than once, because one of them didn't get funded this year, and this would have been their third year of funding.
Wow.
And that's Black Rock Observatory. Hey, Tom.
And sure, we'll apply again next year. There's for two reasons. Obviously, it'd be great to get the money, but my goal is to have a fundraising plan that allows us to do it without the money. But the truth is, one of the benefits of being named an honoraria project is you also then get promotion through the Burning Man network in terms of
Which
your
helps with
piece is written
fundraising.
up in the Jackrabbit. They announce all the honoraria pieces. It helps with fundraising for sure. So while sure, I mean, would it be an ego tap? Yeah. Oh yeah. Whatever. I don't. Sure. I don't.
She poo-poos the part that's like the most important thing to me.
That's cool. I
know.
love it for you. The reason I wanted to get an honoraria grant was I wanted the money because I couldn't bring it this year without the money.
Yeah.
But if sure, I mean, would it be cool? Sure. But the thing is to figure out how to be able to bring it with or without them, because nearly, let's face it, 65 projects got funded, nearly 500 did not get funded. Of the ones that were already screened out after letters of intent. It doesn't matter how great your project is going to be. Let 25 of those projects, and this is not to diss on BMorg by any stretch, but at least 25 of those projects are famous artists. And partly that's a huge opportunity. We get to see Android Jones stained glass at the Burn. I am happy that they contribute to funding that. But, less than 2/3 of the total projects are people like us.
Right.
And that's, a tiny fraction of the total people who are applying. So I believe in this art enough personally, and what I'm trying to create with art and what I'm trying to create here in this community in terms of continuing to build community through art, which, I'm so grateful that Curt kind of opened my eyes to that as a kind of life passion, but it is one. And participating here in San Diego, what SDCap and Collab are doing together, what SDCap and Utopia are doing together, in terms of creating opportunities for people to work collaboratively as artists with funding. SDCap does not fund 100% of anything,
right.
But SDCap, we went to SDCap for a grant, and the level of support and commitment, and the offer of the space to build a collab and all of those sort of things is huge. And we have a board meeting tomorrow where we're reviewing four grants.
I mean, because they're, even if we'd gotten the honorary grant, we wouldn't have gotten a check right that second. And so knowing that we had starter money from SDCap was a huge part of our ability to meet the timeline we had set for ourselves. Because we could get that check, we could take that check and get it in the bank and get down to the Home Depot and start buying wood, whatever. You start acquiring the supplies to start doing the cuts, to start building the Rat, which was going to take longer than anything else. To start reaching out and getting the artists thinking about the interior pieces. We had a whole timeline. We had a whole plan. We knew exactly how long everything was going to take us. And a lot of it was contingent on having money early, which wasn't going to happen with BMORC. If we had gotten approval, then there would have been, okay, and then we're going to have the conference call where we talk about your contract. And I can only assume there's a similar path as there is to a regional project with the honorary grants, where you have to have these phone conferences and talk about the contract, talk about the expectations that BMORC has. And they probably still don't give you all the money up front. They probably still withhold some of it until after. And so, we would have been waiting on that check. And unfortunately, with a project this size, you can't wait until May to start building. You can't. There's no way.
So, man, it just got me thinking about what an additional massive tool that is to have being part of San Diego, a community like San Diego that has an event like Utopia that can kickstart projects in ways that many other cities might never even have the opportunity to do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're amazing.
Journey brought Journey Run to Utopia last year. They got a grant for that, and so they have been along the way. They've been building their particular project that's now leading to Journey going to Burning Man in 2017. So yeah, it's a neat thing for us to get a little preview of what's going, but at the same time be able to get them some money to keep their journey going, as it were. On the flip side of what you asked about people like resubmitting the next year for an honorary grant, last year Stephanie and I had an opportunity to work with the team that built Chronosidra, which was the reverse hourglass on Playa. And Kate, hi Kate. She's an amazing artist, amazing team.
So hip hop.
And so,
shout out to Kate.
So,
Kate Greenberg.
Kate,
God, you did that.
She got an honorary grant last year.
Yeah.
She submitted for an honorary grant this year for an entirely new project, and she didn't get it.
Yeah.
So us submitting a second time. Who knows if they'll actually give us a nod that time? But just because you got a nod one year doesn't mean you're going to get it the next year.
Yeah.
I think that their criteria and what they're looking for year after year is very interesting. But it has very little to do with who's been there before. It's
very little to do.
Yeah, I think it has very little to do, except for the major artists.
Interesting.
Except for the major artists, it has very little to do with who's been there before.
Right.
I mean, which is, just to put one caveat on it, I mean, they're quite clear that they certainly are looking for teams with build experience. They're not giving grants to people, and while Kate was new to Burn, they're looking at the team in terms of confidence that the team can deliver the project. And so that's, you got to have background in terms of being able to deliver, not necessarily absolutely 100% just on Playa, but people who've delivered at least within the project team for sure.
Right.
And they part of the application, part of putting in the grant proposal, they ask you to talk about who you are as an art collective or as an artist or as a group of artists. And a number of things came out of this particular project in that Curt and I and Steph and some of the other people who we've worked with repeatedly in the past took the opportunity to solidify our group into an actual art collective. We're the Cabal, because why not?
What does Cabal mean?
The secret group that does things behind the front.
Oh, okay.
The whispers in the ear of power.
Oh.
And they ask us.
I feel a little uncomfortable with.
Yeah, we're like that.
Right.
Can you stick your tongue out of there, please?
If you can't laugh at other people's occasional impressions of you.
Yeah. But they do ask. They ask for basically a little bit of a resume. And so, we had to go through and talk about to each other, like just trying to determine what we wanted to include as projects that we had been part of, both at Utopia and for Burning Man. Obviously we included the regional projects that Curt and I have been involved with. We included the Touchy series, some of the other stuff that we've done for exclusively for Utopia, like the undicking ceremony, stuff like that.
The Undickening.
The Undickening. Shut up. That was the best piece of performance art I've ever done. It was so good.
The name of it alone is the best thing. Just for the listeners who are not familiar, it's the cockpit.
The cockpit.
Like a stove, basically?
No, it was a fire pit made out of an old washing machine drum.
With a bunch of cocks that were designed out
gigantic penises, pounded metal penises attached to it.
And the ceremony to introduce it was the Undickening.
Because the whole point was that everyone has made bad decisions on behalf of or with or for Dick. And so this was a ceremony designed to cleanse you of your poor dick decisions. We went out there with these hooded robes, and we had all these laser cut dicks and a basket of Sharpies, and we had people writing names and things onto the dicks and throwing them into the fire. And it was so much fun. Oh my God, that was like one of the best projects I've ever done in my whole fucking life. It was so good. But we went through all of this talking amongst ourselves about, like, are we an art collective? We kind of are. I wasn't really involved in Touchy, but I had conversations with both Steph and Curt as they were building, especially Dr. Touchy, about, like, is this too far? Is this a thing? Can we do this? How many speculum is too many speculum?
Apparently 3 is the max.
3 is no more than 3 speculi.
The answer is 3.
We communicate with each other about art, and we support each other in our art, and we're a good base to start building art from. Some people would disagree. Fuck you. Yes, I said that. This whole project was filled with little snarky bits like that. We called the project The Effect, E-Effect, because last year someone made a passing comment on Facebook that they called it the C and M effect, meaning the Curt and Meg effect, that if we didn't like something, that thing stopped happening. So we're like, oh, we are the effect. We're an effect. Yes, fuck yeah. So, like, we took that. We claimed that. We're like, yeah, we'll do that. And the Cabal.
That's how the Spice Girls got their name, too.
By being an effect?
No. Some newspaper writer would call them, like, okay, it was making fun of them.
Right.
Ginger Spice, scary. I know that because I am a big Spice Girls fan.
Oh my God. I fucking could not love you any more than right this second.
I would happily go to their reunion tour if only Posh Spice would fucking get on with it and join it. It's just...
I will so go with you. I will go with you to the Spice Girls.
I will go just to watch you be at the Spice Girls concert.
This explains a lot of your dating profile.
It really might. Like,
it's about time.
we literally, like, the name The Cabal was, Curt and I have both been accused in the past of manipulating the community, having our fingers in every pie and working to make things go the way we want them, which is blatantly, patently false. But it's amusing as fuck that people think I have that kind of power or that Curt has that kind of power. So we went out of our way to embrace some of the, it's like women who like to say cunt. They're like, I'm claiming it for myself,
Yeah.
We're like, to be fair, though, I wouldn't have thought we should name the project The Effect if I didn't think it was.
No, it actually super fucking fit. It was amazing how well it fit.
The internal joke was extremely enjoyable,
but it was actually a very good.
But yeah,
it fully described what we were talking about. That the effect of building the cage that surrounds yourself, that you're the one who built it, so you're the one who can take it apart, that it's your demons that constructed it. It just happened to play nicely in the Curt and I's deep need for snark.
Mm-hmm. So coming up to sort of the end here, I'm imagining that there is, out of like the 6 people that listen to this episode, 1 or 2 of them is considering doing an actual art piece. Like,
do it!
From different parts of the world. Who knows where they're at?
Do it.
What piece of advice do you think, what was the biggest lesson each of you got out of this experience, aside from the ego thing that we already talked about earlier, about certainty, uncertainty, just from going through this process? Did you get one big lesson out of it, or is it just all right, tough it out, do it again next year? What was a big takeaway that each of you got from this?
So, what you just said, why isn't that a huge takeaway?
No, it can be. It's just we talk about it a lot.
You buy in. You put a lot into it, heart and soul, and it doesn't go exactly how you think it's going to go. And maybe it's a longer term plan, or maybe it's just dead. You don't know. But yeah, dust yourself off, get back out there, and do it again. For people who are just starting, do it, and if something goes wrong, do it again. Having the successes along the way, the ups and downs, the ride, as it were, that's everything about it that keeps bringing me back. So, yeah, my huge takeaway from this one, I don't know that we're done, so coming up with a longer term plan, that's an interesting takeaway for me. But it's the reminder of the reason that you do it is because you love it and you're passionate about it, and you are an artist. So get back up and keep going, and keep doing, keep creating.
Curt stole my thunder. He does that a lot, bitch. You are an artist. You are an artist. I am an artist. And your art does not require someone else's approval to be that art, to say what you need it to say. Aside from the bruise to my ego, which I probably need those on a more regular basis. I have a very unwarrantedly high opinion of myself. What Curt said about just fucking do it. Build it. And if you can't build it, figure out why you can't build it and learn that thing. But more than all of that, ask questions. Ask questions of yourself. Ask questions of other people in your community. Reach out. If you don't feel like you can do the paperwork on your own, find somebody in your community who likes to do the paperwork, who's good with words, who wants to sit down and do that part. If you don't feel like you can do the design for the CNC cutting for your whatever, find there's somebody in your community who went to architecture school or engineering school or has done this 42 million times and has a CNC in their basement. Ask everybody to help, because A, that's how you find the answers and you get past the roadblocks, and B, that's how you build community, because it's never just you. No artist is just in there by themselves, no influence, no anything. Period. Nobody is just that guy with nothing going on, no conversation with somebody else that sparks something. Everybody has an influence. Everybody has something to contribute. It's just that the way we build art here is about that. That's not a side effect. That's not an additional bonus. That's what it's about. And if your community is 3 people, great. That's 3 people getting tighter and closer and fighting with each other and working it out and creating together. If your community is 30 people, great. If it's 300 people, fucking great. Build it. Because you're an artist. And that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly what both of them said. There's a reason we work together. We have shared perspective on a lot of things. But for me, there's both a sort of personal one and a macro social one. And the personal one is just the profound reminder of how willing your friends and the people you don't even know are your friends are to help. And not just willing, but how the number of times a person who played a role in working on this project that was a gift of time and real talent said, "Thank you so much for asking. I really needed to participate in this. I was in a crappy spot and I needed the human connection. I needed the creative outlet. I needed the thank you for asking me to contribute my skills, my talent." when I'm feeling like, oh my God, and before you send the messenger or the email, you're like, oh, I don't really do I want to bother them? Do I want to, and what you get back is this reminder of that we really do need creative outlets for our time and our talent and community. That is an opportunity, and so do it again and again and again, because even though the project quote unquote failed, it didn't fail me. It was critically important in my growth, for sure. I don't know yet what all I will know, but I know I'm an artist now. I didn't know that 5 weeks ago. And I know that in the kind of visceral way of knowing that's an important knowing. I don't know why and how. I don't know the texture of how important it is yet, but I know it's really important. And I know that this project did not fail our community. This project served our community in lots of ways already. And so that's just an incredible thing and such a reminder. Wow, the person we thought could do this thing didn't actually, freaked out. They were like, oh my God, I actually don't really know how to do this. I don't have the ability to do it. Oh my God. And you have this panic, and then you're like, oh yeah, that person in camp with me is teaches that professionally in college. It's there, and the reminder of you can solve every problem. It's why doing hard things is good, right? Because it reminds you that hard things are just one small easy thing at a time, or one small hard thing at a time. The macro one, though, is really, I serve on the board of directors and for SDCAP, and I've been in the burn community a long time. I've been talking with lots of people both in and out of the community around this project about funding art. And, it's not a joke that they're totally defunding the NEA. I just will call them they, because I still can't have a name for our political system at this point in time. But it's not a joke, but the way we were funding art through the NEA before was, spit. What SDCAP is doing here with the proceeds of Utopia and what we can continue to grow and do here collectively as a community in terms of funding art opportunity is enormous. At Utopia, we fund not just on a dollar for dollar per person, materially more than Be More expense per person at Burning Man. We did about a little over $85,000 in art grants last year at Utopia at a 3,000 person event. It's amazing. The big lesson of not getting the money is I want to do more to make sure there's more money for art, because what happens when we do creative collaboration is we build healthier community, and we build more joy and laughter and friendship and the why we're here, right? The stuff that's that, when you look back, you go, yeah, life was good. And so I think the macro lesson of it was a fail is, this year we asked SDCAP for $4,000. Next year I'll probably ask them for $15,000. But it's my job to make sure they're in a position to be able to grant it. My job, all of our jobs collectively, right?
So buy a Utopia ticket.
Buy a Utopia ticket. No, seriously. Actually, it's kind of the difference, right? If we sell out Utopia this year, and we're increasing the population somewhat, if we sell out Utopia this year, the difference of those last 200 tickets, say, in terms of what we can do as a community for funding art outside of Utopia or for funding other kinds of civic engagement is enormous. And because even though the total dollars don't look huge, the total dollars in the single pond of San Diego are really, really, really impactful.
Buying a Utopia ticket is the most fun you will ever have from contributing to a good cause.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The most fun you will ever have contributing to a good cause.
So we talk about lessons learned and stuff, and how other people encourage other people to go through this. So one of the most cathartic things that we did after not getting this honorary grant for the project is we decided to take the project down a notch into a pavilion piece for Around the Man. These are kind of the regional pieces of this particular year, and they were asking for shrines. So we decided to
propose
Sugar, which is Shrine of the Ungranted Art.
It's so snark. It's so fucking snark. It's amazeballs. I love it so hard.
It's a combination of three pieces that we know of that didn't get funding. It's The Effect, Journey, even though they're still going to the burn, and Black Rock Observatory. And we kind of melded them together into this weirdly contraptual shrine thing, 4 foot by 4 foot thing. And we submitted it for a pavilion project to the man. For me, it was a keep going. It was a cathartic release, and it is kind of like, oh yeah, well fuck you, haha, right?
I'll show you. I'll build some fucking art.
But the whole nature of this pod is what happens when art fails, and so the idea is to continue for a cathartic release. But, and I'm dropping this for the first time right here on your show live tonight.
Exclusive.
Our pavilion shine got denied.
Oh my god!
And so we're getting used to hearing no this year, right?
ML.
But here's the thing.
They're like, wait, you want to bring us 3 things we said no to?
Exactly. All dumped into one? What are you talking about?
So
here's our trash.
But here's the thing.
It was a little
we're actually going to build it anyway.
Yeah.
It's a smaller scale. We'll be able to get the money. Whatever. I'll sell some clothing. I don't know. Whatever. But we're going to build this piece. We are taking it to Burning Man. It's going to be rogue art. And I think it's pretty funny because it's going to look just like the rest of their pavilions, their shrines in the pavilion. Yeah. It's just going to be way out there somewhere because it's ungranted, right? And we're going to bring it to Utopia because it's a lesson in all of this.
Do you have placement for that?
Ha.
At Utopia?
No, at
Burn?
the Burn.
No, we just got denied tonight. I don't even know we're going to ask for placement. Rogue art, motherfucker.
Just bring it
put it wherever the fuck. We're going to build it anyway. They're going to put it somewhere.
But it's a good testament of not only what we can do by keep going forward, if what we need to do for some sort of cathartic release, but it's also a testimonial to what Collab has to offer, because we won't be able to build this piece without the laser. We won't be able to do it without the CNC router. So it's cool. It's still going to be a fun piece, and it's still going to be a release for me to do it. And look, we set ourselves up. We said it was for ungranted art. They're like, on principle.
Yeah, fuck you. Ungranted means you don't get no money, bitch. And it was just, it's okay.
That's pretty funny.
It's
hilarious.
It's
fucking hysterical.
But I will tell you, in my worst day of my post-project grief, post-denial grief, that's when Curt came back and he was like, I'm just thinking, let's talk about a shrine and what would we do and what would it, and Journey got denied when and I went to bed with the sore ribs that when you've laughed so hard for hours, that you just literally, everything hurt, but the kind of hurt you're like, it's the kind of hurt you want, and instead of being dark and mopey and oh my broken artist soul, it was, we're gonna make a project, Curt, come hell or high water, and and this one, I'm gonna make that other project too, but this one I can bring to Burn this year.
I love it.
Curt told me about Sugar, and I was just like, oh my god, we're dicks. We're such assholes. Fuck yeah, let's do it. And it was
I hope somebody at
We're assholes.
I hope somebody who read the grant application was at least kind of
amused,
got the joke,
laughed.
had read enough of the other proposals, and I hope they had a good laugh, because I had a good enough laugh for everybody.
I thought it was fucking
And just so you know, she is the only. You heard about it tonight.
I didn't know.
She didn't know.
I didn't know.
An email came at 4:30 today, and I was
We got her reaction live on audio.
Live!
My reaction was, fuck. So if that was drowned out, let me rephrase for you. Fuck you! Oh my god, what the fuck? You didn't want my snarky art twice? Fuck! Whatever.
I love it though. No,
We're gonna build that one anyway, so fuck up. We're gonna put it next to. We're just gonna move it every day from Porto to Porto.
it's great. I love that this is
Can
happening.
we just do that? Can we just put it next to
Put it on
different
wheels.
Porto banks and just move it around? Fuck you! This is my art.
Let's encourage people to piss on it too.
hey now.
No, because we have to move it. So it's gonna smell real bad when we put it by your tent in
home in my
Utopia.
trailer, so yeah, no.
Yeah, it's still coming. It's coming to Utopia. So
Oh, good.
There's
I'm
that.
glad that this story arc ended up having a happy ending.
Happy is a strange word at this point.
fuck you. We're going tomorrow.
Entertaining. It's a bittersweet ending.
Yes.
And guys, aside from the Effect Project, as always, I like to take the opportunity in this forum to thank you guys for all the work that you do for the community. It's no fucking joke, the amount of hours that you put in so that all of us can enjoy all of the amazing things that we get to experience, not just in San Diego, but also at Burning Man and all the shit that you guys do. I want to just thank you guys publicly for all of it. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody laugh at that?
I did, but that's because I just.
She's a producer.
I'm your producer. I do nothing.
I actually want to thank you for saying that. It's
Yeah.
some days you need to hear that more than others, and so thank you.
And for doing what you do.
Yeah,
I record
exactly.
shit and put it online. Now, you guys are doing that.
But now you're a
work.
DJ.
All right, I'm stopping recording.
Hey, no mid-show break today. Whee! Hey, if you haven't already, make sure to go check out Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline. In our mission to document this community and culture, we also put out this other show that spotlights DJs that are active in the Burning Man scene. That show is produced by Navjeet Sarna and is released on opposite weeks of this show. Navjeet, as well as, of course, associate producer Tori Massey. She does so much work for all of us, for both of us. Burner Podcast is released on the first and third Wednesday of the month and is available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeart Radio, TuneIn Radio, among many others. The show is not hard to find, is the point. Today's episode was actually produced by executive producer Meg King. She took a week off her retirement from being a regular producer of the show in order to make this one happen. Burner Podcast is produced by Eddie Rangel with support from our amazing team, which include associate producer Tori Massey, network music editor Navjeet Sarna, online editor Ramiro Martinez, sound engineer Freckle, and multiple other people that I'm not going to mention here. We thank you, dear listeners, for all your support. If you haven't already, please go like us on Facebook. And that's it. That's the only social media channel we're pushing. It can't be that hard to go give us some love on Facebook. Our opening music is by... I'm sorry, I was about to say Duckman. Our opening theme music, America's Horse with No Name Remix, is produced by Joe Man. Check out his music over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joe Man. There was not a mid-show break today. If there was, the music would have been by Duckman, and you can check out his shit over at duckmansd.bandcamp.com. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.